welcome back to Warhammer Total War 2. As always, my name is General Confusion, and this might actually be the last Skaven battle I show, at least for now. I feel like at this point I've gotten a pretty good handle on the Skaven. I've experimented and played a couple of battles with all of their different units, and I think I have a pretty good idea of how they tick. So after this battle against the Dark Elves, I think I'm going to make a wrap-up video where I talk about the different units in isolation and in combination, and then we'll move on to another race, probably the Lizardmen next. But anyway, so this battle is the culmination of my Skaven explorations, and it is once again against the Dark Elves. As I said in the Lizardman battle, I found that a lot of people pick the Dark Elves when they're going up against the Skaven, which I think is interesting. Honestly, I think it's a bad idea, because the fact of the matter is that the Dark Elves are not very good at dealing with the Skaven. I mean, they're just not. They just don't have all the tools they need. But anyway, so my Skaven army here, in some ways is similar to what I've done before, but it includes a couple of new units that I haven't shown off yet. So my front line is Clan Rat Spears mixed with Plague Monks mixed with Skaven Slave Spears. So I've got 2 Skaven Slaves, 2 Plague Monks, and then 1 Clan Rat Spear holding down the flank. I picked Spears because I guessed that the Dark Elf player was going to take a Hydra, and I was right. Actually, I was more than right. He took 2. So, okay, I was half right. Plague Monks, very good general purpose infantry. Skaven Slave Spears, excellent trash. Excellent trash. What a very peculiarly Skaven thing to have in the field. Anyway, and then Clan Rat Spears are middling decent spear infantry. They can do some damage to large units with that +9 bonus versus large, but really they're like Skaven Slaves. They're a higher quality of Skaven Slave. They're just there to die. Behind them, I have a unit of Plague Monk Censer Bearers right in the center. Plague Monk Censer Bearers I haven't shown off. They're very expensive. I don't take them often, and I don't take many. But they are basically the idea of the Plague Monk taken to its ultimate conclusion. They have no armor, very high leadership, pretty good HP. Actually, all Skaven units have pretty decent HP, except for Skaven Slaves. But a little more HP than regular Plague Monks. More leadership, even more. They're up to 91 at this point. Their melee attack is high, magical, and contaminating. So they're like the Plague Claw catapults. They inflict -10 leadership on anyone they're fighting. So their enemies break very, very quickly, which is awful for them because this 38 melee attack and 46 damage, armor piercing, means that Plague Monk Censer Bearers murder enemy infantry in a big hurry. Also, they, like Plague Monks, have Frenzy. And they have a charge bonus that would look more at home on a light cavalry unit than infantry. So overall, they just do a fantastic job of smashing enemy infantry. Next to them, I have over here a unit of Poison Wind Globadiers, the anti-large throwing unit. And then I have a unit of Deathglow Bombardiers, which are an anti-infantry equivalent to the Poison Wind Globadiers. They're more expensive. They're basically the same kind of unit, same size, pretty much the same HP, a little tiny bit more HP. But their missiles, instead of being anti-large, are simply armor-piercing and with a whole bunch of splash damage. Explosive armor-piercing damage. So these guys throw into an infantry fight, and they can do a ton of damage. I brought them in this battle just because I anticipated that the Dark Elves would bring a great big line of, like, Black Ark Corsairs or something, because that's what Dark Elf players always do against Skaven. And honestly, during the battle itself, I kind of lost track of them. I was busy dealing with the monsters and all that stuff, so I'm not entirely sure exactly how they did, but we'll see. I think they helped because, if I recall correctly, I saw some things that made me think that I was winning the infantry fight. I have 2 more Clan Rat Spears over on the flanks. I have 2 units of Skaven Slave Slingers, which I have not really brought before in the battles that I've shown. They are the Skaven Slaves of ranged units. They're cheap. They cost 200 gold for a unit, and they have 105 as opposed to the 90 that ranged units usually have. 105 models, that is. Their damage is crap. Their range is not good. Their ammunition is okay. All their stats are garbage, but they cost 200. And they can throw rocks at people, whittle away HP, score some kills. Against large units, they're surprisingly effective, because when all that many Slingstones hits, it does add up. I have over here, I have a Warp Lightning Cannon. Just one. just to kind of put some pressure, force the enemy to come to me on my terms. I love lightning cannons for that reason. Over here, I have, of course, the mighty Doom Wheel. I love having at least one Doom Wheel. Honestly, this might get nerfed. The Doom Wheel might get hit with the nerf bat because it is just so very effective. And there are few situations in which it's ineffective. If the enemy brings a whole lot of armor-piercing cavalry, then they can shut the Doom Wheel down pretty well. But if they bring a whole bunch of armor-piercing cavalry, then they're not going to do well against the rest of the Skaven lineup, generally speaking. So, overall, Doom Wheel, very strong. My leadership corps is led by Lord Skrolk. Now, Lord Skrolk is interesting compared to the other Skaven lords because he is a melee caster with Censer Bearer-like melee stats. He's basically a Censer Bearer on Warpstone. He has low HP for a lord, or middling HP, I guess. He has low armor for a lord. His melee stats, decent, nothing terribly exceptional. Damage, pretty high. His weapon strength is pretty good, although interestingly not armor-piercing like most Plague Monk Censer Bearers. But, okay, I guess here's how I'm thinking about it. The other Skaven lords are hard to snipe. The Screaming Bell with the Assassin Bodyguards, Queek Headtaker, the Warlord on the Bonebreaker, all those guys are pretty hard to single out and snipe. Skrolk is not. Skrolk is a melee infantry without any armor, so he's easy to snipe. But Skrolk comes with a couple of abilities, and if you bring them, basically, Skrolk is a suicide bomber, kind of. That's kind of how I think of him. The Liber Bubonicus is a direct damage single target ability, 135 second cooldown, costs no magic, and does a ton of damage. This thing hits like a truck. It does about 3 times the damage that Spirit Leech does. So it tears off, I don't know, 1,500, 2,000 hit points, something like that. And he has the Rod of Corruption, which is an AoE damage effect that hits everyone around him. So between the two of these, the Liber Bubonicus and the Rod of Corruption, basically you can come and kill Skrolk at any time. The enemy can dive in their Flying Lord and monsters and cavalry and whatever, pile on him and kill him, but it's going to really hurt. It's going to really suck for those units that come in to kill him, and he may well take the enemy lord with him. So Skrolk's defense is not running away, it's not having HP, it's not having a lot of armor, it's just daring the enemy to come on and have a go if they think they're hard enough. And of course he comes with plague spells. I have once again not taken any of the summoning spells, for one thing because I don't want to abuse the bug, and for another thing because I feel like a lot of times they're not actually the most efficient use of your magic. But I have brought all the others: Pestilent Breath, Bless with Filth, Wither, and I didn't bring Plague actually, so just those. Oh, I did bring Plague. I forgot. I don't think I used Plague. I have brought one Assassin to bodyguard Skrolk. Where's the Assassin? Assassin, there he is, he's over here. And of course the Assassin has all those good assassin-y things. He has the trophy heads, he has concealment bombs, he has the rival hide talisman, and Slippery. Slippery has been really buffed in that it gives you melee defense, whereas in the first game it didn't. So this makes Slippery actually really useful for the Assassin, because his melee defense is mediocre, but when he pops Slippery, it's 62, which makes him very hard to hit. And then, in the back, I have brought a Warlock Engineer as well, because I just couldn't give up those delicious Ruin spells. I brought the Doom Rocket on him, which is like a... He only gets one shot of it. It's kind of like a breath weapon, but it's long range. I brought Skitter Leap, which is a spell I've never used before. I tried it out a little bit before this battle, just off and on. Couldn't really figure out exactly how to work it. It seems like it could be very useful, but the fact is that situations in which it can be used are fairly rare. So I tried to use it in this battle. I didn't make a very efficient use of it because I was just too slow. But basically, when you cast Skitter Leap, it lasts a minute, and it gives the target super stock and plus 24% speed. So it makes them fast and impossible to see unless the enemy is very close to them. So it feels like you should be able to use this just right at the beginning of the battle to take a powerful unit and sneak it into a flanking position. It's just kind of hard to pull off when you're busy managing the rest of the army. I brought Howling Warp Gale, of course. I brought Warp Lightning, of course. And then he has Musk of Fear, which lowers enemy leadership and attack when he's casting. And he has Extra Powder, which buffs the damage and explosion radius of artillery that he's near. So he's giving these Warp Lightning cannons a nice little boost. So that's my army. And the idea here is we're going to crash in with the front line. Skrulk, the Sensor Bearers, and the Assassin backing up the middle will punch a hole. The Poison Wing Globadiers will provide anti-large punch. The Death Globe Bombardiers can also hurt large units, so they're not as much, but they're mainly anti-infantry. The Skaven Slave Slingers will shoot at large units or single targets or flyers, if there's any weak flyers that I can Howling Warp Gale. And the Warp Lightning Cannon will force the enemy to come and fight me and pick HP off whatever targets seem valuable, while the Clan Rat Spears protect them. That's my strategy. The Dark Elf player has brought Morathi on her flying mount, her Nightmare Steed, or whatever it's called. We haven't seen Morathi on the channel before. She's a spellcaster. She actually has okay melee stats, and she has a big bonus versus large. So against monsters, she's not bad in combat. Her spell list is very interesting. She has Greater Arcane Conduit popped right at the beginning of the battle, which is weird. I'm not sure why he popped that immediately, but she's got Power of Darkness, which lets her hurt herself or other units in order to get basically Arcane Conduit. She has Pit of Shades, which is a stationary, powerful vortex spell that does a whole lot of damage. Melkoth's Mystifying Miasma, which is a direct damage spell that also lowers speed. It doesn't do all that much damage, but it's cheap, so you can spam it very easily. She has Heartrender and the Dark Sword, which is her special weapon, which debuffs enemy melee defense and attack around her. This means that she can actually get some value just by flying around above the front line. She has Enchanting Beauty, which debuffs enemies around her again. -9 melee attack. These in combination mean that any unit within 40 meters of Morathi that's an enemy has -18 melee attack, plus a loss of melee defense and a loss of charge bonus. That's big. That's a big debuff. Greater Arcane Conduit, which is Arcane Conduit Plus. Spiteful Conjuration, so anytime she's casting, all my units lose armor. That's not very effective against Skaven, but hey, what the heck, it might help. And Life Leeching, which means anytime she's casting, she improves her recharge rate. And then she has the regular Dark Elf stuff. The main body of his army is Black Ark Corsairs. He has 3, 4, 5, 6 units of Black Ark Corsairs. A very heavy investment in what's honestly a pretty mediocre unit. I mean, they're okay, but the fact of the matter is, Plague Monks kick the crap out of Black Ark Corsairs, which is appropriate since they're more expensive. So Black Ark Corsairs, you know, compared to the Plague Monks, they have less hit points, much more armor, melee attack a little better, melee defense, 1 second. How is it? Melee defense actually worse. Weapon strength also worse, and charge bonus worse. So the only thing they have going for them is the armor in comparison. And so Plague Monks versus Black Ark Corsairs typically ends badly for the Corsairs. He's got 2 units of Dread Spears, 1 on each flank, and then the main hitting power is provided by 2 War Hydras. This is a very heavy investment in monsters, which might pay off against the Skaven if the Skaven don't bother to bring their anti-monster tools. Unfortunately for him, I have. At least I brought some of them. Down here, he has 2 units of Dark Riders, the shieldless variant, so the very, very cheap, fast shock cavalry. 2 units? Did I say 2 units? 3 units of Dark Riders. I thought he only had 2, but no, it's 3. And then way over here, Vanguard deployed sneakily up over by the mountain. He has a unit of Harpies. This was very successful. I was so focused on his army and seeing the Dark Riders coming in, I actually missed these until they were on top of me. So his strategy, obviously, is going to be to come in with the infantry, smash the War Hydras through the middle of my line, probably going to go for the Lord, while these guys and the Harpies sweep around the flanks and come in for the artillery and the back line. So let's see how this goes. So I'm just kind of assessing the situation at the moment. My Warp Lightning Cannons immediately start to fire. They were aiming at this unit first off. I shifted target to one of the Hydras, and then I kind of thought better of it because I was like, well, you know, Hydras can regenerate pretty quickly. The Warp Lightning Cannons won't hurt them all that quickly, so I might as well shoot at something they can actually kill. But, so I put some damage on this War Hydra, but as you can see, it's just kind of regenerating. And I wasn't happy with my accuracy. The front line is moving to face. Meanwhile, these Harpies are coming in, which I did not see, once again, because I never promised I was fantastic at this game. And the Dark Riders are coming in. I see the Dark Riders coming, and I have the Doom Wheel on that side to stop them. The Warp Lightning Cannon still shooting at this War Hydra, not really accomplishing much. I think pretty soon I'm going to shift target to the Black Ark Corsairs to whittle them down before impact. The Harpies are waiting for their moment while the Dark Riders come in. at some point here pretty soon, I cast Skitter Leap on my Doom Wheel. Yep, there it goes. This was a waste. They were already so close that it didn't really accomplish anything. But the Doom Wheel does manage to get down here and intercept one unit of the Dark Riders. The other two swing wide. So the Doom Wheel gets into the Dark Riders, does some damage, ties them up. But the Harpies are coming in at the same time. I've got one unit of spears moving down here to block those guys, but the other unit of spears is way out here. So the Harpies get right onto the line. Now, the front lines are colliding. This unit of Black Ark Corsairs is having a super bad day, with the Plague Monk Censer Bearers, the Assassin, and Skrulk, and the Plague Monks all coming in on it. So is this one. This one's been shot by the Warp Lightning Cannon, and now it's going up against these Skaven Slave Spears, which are actually doing okay for the moment. And these Plague Monks are hitting it as well. These spears over here are getting lapped, and they're going to really, really suffer. Down here, I've also been lapped on this side, and so that's terrible. The Hydra, meanwhile, more lightning coming into the Black Ark Corsairs, but the Hydra breathes fire directly onto my Deathglobe Bombardiers and Poison Wind Globadiers, and does a whole bunch of damage to them and the Skaven Slave Slingers. Hydra Fire Breath is bad, bad news. The Poison Globes are firing, though, doing some damage. I've dropped Warp Lightning down here, and a Breath spell that has routed the center of the Dark Elf line, so now my troops can crash right through and get into the Hydra. In the back line, I'm not sure what these Dark Riders are doing. I think they weren't being microed. I got my spears back into the Harpies, while my Warlock Engineer was pulling up, and my Globadiers and my other spears are all coming in to protect the cannons. Now the Dark Riders are coming in, but this is now a bad fight for them. They don't want to be there. Skaven Slaves routing, that's fine. I've dropped Rivalhide Talisman over here. They've dropped a Pit of Shades right on top of my Skaven Slave Spears. Oh well, the Plague Monk Censer Bearers are a much bigger loss. The Poison Wind Globadiers have done a whole bunch of damage. Look at that War Hydra. It was down to half before it procced its special regeneration. But now I'm firing at this one and taking off tons and tons of hit points. The Deathglobe Bombardiers, unfortunately, are really suffering because they weren't really firing at infantry like they should be. The Hydras pulled through, have gotten into my globes. The Plague Monk Censer Bearers are chasing those units off, I think, or just kind of settling up. Meanwhile, Lord Skrulk down here is having the time of his life. He is surrounded by Black Ark Corsairs and never been happier. My Assassin and Warlock Engineer have both gotten in here to fight this Hydra, and they're beating the crap out of it. I've got Morathi dived on my cannons. The cannons came back and then routed again because of Morathi. I've got my spears kind of fighting her. Over here, my slingers are being chased away by a couple of units. This was a mistake. This was... one second, let me pause real quick. Some more lightning coming down over there. Over here, my Doom Wheel has smashed this unit of Dark Riders and is chasing them all the way off the map because I wasn't paying attention. I should have been. I'm rallying units desperately as they're coming back. I've got units back here coming back, there, over here. This is what Skaven Slave Slingers are good for. Well, one of the things. Like, you notice they have no kills. They've done a little bit of damage, not much, but now they've got 1,300 points worth of enemy units that are totally undamaged and could be contributing to the fight, chasing away 400 units of worthless slingers. 400 points worth of worthless slingers. And as soon as those guys stop chasing them, the slingers will just come back because they're too fast to be caught. So, I'm dropping more lightning. Lightning is such a powerful spell. Look at that damage. Skrulk's still having a field day, down to about half health, but he's racked up 43 kills. He dropped, in the middle of all that, he actually dropped the Liber Bubonicus on one of the Hydras. He didn't get rid of my Poison Wind Globadiers, so they've come back. They're putting more damage on the Hydras. These Dark Riders are cleaning up the Deathglobe Bombardiers, so the Deathglobes aren't getting much done, but I don't really need them. The Plague Monk Censer Bearers are coming into the Hydras, along with the Assassin and the Warlock Engineer. This War Hydra is routing already. This other one is getting onto Lord Skrulk. That's a problem because Lord Skrulk is not tough enough to stand that. They've also got Dark Riders coming in that routed from fear, I think. I've blessed the Doom Wheel and these Plague Monks with filth, and I'm charging them into the Hydra to stop it. The Poison Wind Globadiers are going to get wrecked by Morathi at this point, but they've done their work. They've done a ton of damage to both Hydras. At this point, the battle in the center looks pretty bad. I mean, I've got these 3 units. I've got Morathi. I've got the Hydra, this other Hydra. I've got these units that might come back. But it's not actually as bad as it looks because the Slingers are coming back. These Spears are still okay. Clan Rat Spears, the Warp Lightning Cannon is coming back onto the cannon, and he's not noticing that. And I've just got this Death Blob right in the middle. Skrulk, the Sensor Bearers, which have 95 kills already. The Doom Wheel, which is hugely important. Plague Monks, more Plague Monks, and then over here I have these 2 heroes that are just chasing this War Hydra away, but will be returning to the battle. So, Morathi, all her units just piling in. They're trying to kill. I dropped my, that was my Doom Rocket. It did some damage. Not a huge amount. You really need to have a stationary target for that to be worth it. Skrulk is kind of getting beaten up, but now he's routed the War Hydra. Morathi is coming in. Morathi's not going to like that fight. Unfortunately, here my Poison Winds are going to go away. These Slingers have come back and are just being a nuisance. They'll keep doing that all battle. My Plague Monk Sensor Bearers are finally routing with 99 kills. The Doom Wheel is just having a great time against these Dread Spears and Black Ark Corsairs while I bring my Warlock Engineer back in. Skrulk versus Morathi with trophy heads on her is a fight that Skrulk is going to win. Especially now that the Assassin has come in to help. So Morathi is in a very bad way, but she takes the time to drop a Pit of Shades on my Slingers. This is the other thing Skaven Slaves and Slingers are good for. That was a complete waste of magic. They were just being annoying. Here come the Warp Lightning Cannon crew courageously back to man the cannons. All my spears are coming back. Her Dark Riders are about gone. Unfortunately, Skrulk has routed because of the combination of Morathi, the cavalry, and these Black Ark Corsairs all getting on him was just too much. He's dropped a ton of damage, done 48 kills, and hurt the Hydras and Morathi very badly, but now he is running away. Where's Morathi gone, actually? I lost track of her. The Assassin and the Doom Wheel are now fighting the Hydras, while these Dark Elf units are shattered. Now the Warlock Engineer is starting to come back in. The Doom Wheel is just doing work. 98 kills, tons of damage, broken units. The Skaven Slave Slingers still just hurling rocks at the Black Ark Corsairs to keep him broken. Lord Skrulk is running for his life, and he gets fire breathed. And I think he's still technically alive, but he's about to be dead. Morathi up here has been howling Warp Gale, and I'm trying to get missile fire onto her. I've got the Warp Lightning Cannons. They're doing a bunch of damage. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get the Slingers in, but the Warp Lightning Cannons take her down really, really low. Unfortunately, the Hydra got Skrulk, and then she drops... This I don't quite understand. That Pit of Shades, they keep dropping Pits of Shades on worthless units. Clan Rat Spears, I don't care if they get Pit of Shades'd. My Warp Lightning Cannon is still wavering, but still functional. So it's still shooting at Morathi, trying to kill her. It's not going to kill her, unfortunately. The Skaven Slave Spears are now focusing on the Hydra. And a Hydra is a great target for Skaven Slave Slingers, rather, not Spears. Admittedly, they're getting wrecked right now, but their low damage is rather effective against its low armor. So they can actually hurt Hydras when they're not routing. Unfortunately, because of the Lord Recently Died penalty, they are. Warp Lightning coming down over there. I cast Warp Lightning so many times during this battle. It's a great spell. Once again, this Hydra is about to break because the Warlock Engineer, the Plague Monks doing their damage, and I'm about to bring the Assassin back in. At this point, the battle's completely turned around. The Doom Wheel, the Assassin, the little death squad I had here in the middle smashed the units that came after them. Admittedly, my units are routing, a bunch of them, and these Harpies are chasing my Warp Lightning Cannon crew off, but the Skaven Slave Slingers are coming back. The Plague Monk Sensor Bearers have come back and are still going with 115 kills, as is the Doom Wheel with 113. And in the middle here, my hero squad is actually doing pretty well at dealing with the War Hydras. Yes, the Warlock Engineer is running, but that's okay. He's not a melee hero. The Assassin, on the other hand, is about to come in and lay some hurt down. 2 giant monsters, and this Assassin does not care. If these Black Ark Corsairs had come in, that might have helped, but with the support of only a couple of Skaven Slave Slingers, the Assassin is actually taking on 2 Hydras. Well, he has the Warlock Engineer, but that's not much. The Doom Wheel has been miasma'd. Doesn't matter, it can still wreck infantry all day. And my Plague Monk Sensor Bearers are over here just making sure these units don't come back. So, overall, doing okay. Clan Rat Spears rallying. These Plague Monks, I don't remember if they rally. They might. The Warp Lightning Cannon is gone for good, which is unfortunate. But the Skaven Slave Slingers keep coming back. You can't deal enough damage to these guys quickly enough to smash their leadership entirely. They just keep returning. And so now they're coming over here. My Warlock Engineer is being chased away by Harpies. I believe the Skaven Slave Slingers are going to try and shoot the Harpies. Unfortunately, they're going to run into the Hydras, but this Hydra has routed. My Assassin has routed a Hydra by himself. That's crazy. And the Doom Wheel is now chasing that Hydra off, while the Slingers pepper it just to make sure it's not going to return. It is actually out of healing. We've just outdamaged the Hydra's healing. This Hydra is now also broken, and we're going to chase it with the Doom Wheel to make sure it doesn't come back. So at this point in the battle, pretty much all that's left on the Dark Elf side. He has a few Black Ark Corsairs over here making sure my Clan Rat Spears get off the battlefield. He has a unit of Harpies. He has Morathi. All the rest of his army is shattered. Most of my army is also shattered. Oh, he also, I guess, has 16 Dread Spears. Most of my army is also shattered, but I have, these Skaven Slave Slingers are only wavering. They're still in the fight. I've got 2 Skaven Slave Slingers, about 130 left between them. I've got just a couple of Plague Monks there, but I have the Doom Wheel, and I have my Assassin. The Warlock Engineer is being escorted off the field, but the Harpies then leave him alone, pull back towards the actual fight. And this Warlock Engineer just comes right back. This is what's really cool about Skaven. They're like Greenskins in that they continually rally and return. Both of the Hydras are being chased off the field. This Hydra choosing to turn around and fight my Assassin is a very poor decision. The Doom Wheel is escorting that one away. I've now Howling Warp Galed these Harpies so that my Slingers can just pump them full of rocks. And Harpies are one of the units that Skaven Slave Slingers actually can do decent damage to. So that's happening. My Warlock Engineer is running desperately for Morathi, but Morathi is so badly damaged from that time she dived on Skrulk and got Libra Bubonicus that she doesn't want to come down and fight. She only has 300 health. Even the Warlock Engineer could potentially kill her. These Harpies are diving down into the Slingers, but there's some Plague Monks there guarding them, and the Assassin and the Doom Wheel are both coming back, having either shattered or actually killed their targets. So at this point, all that's left, these Black Ark Corsairs trying to get into the fight, and Morathi. Morathi drops a Melkoth's on my Warlock Engineer, but it's doing almost no damage because that spell does not work versus single combatants. I shatter the Harpies, and the army goes. So, let's talk about that battle a little bit. It was an interesting one. The dual Hydras is a good pick generally against Skaven. They did a ton of damage. Morathi, likewise. Skaven have a hard time dealing with flying units. When there's only one of them, it's relatively easier, but even so, just by keeping the Warp Lightning Cannon shut down as much as he did, Vincent Van Smoff managed, or Smo, I'm not sure. I didn't play Dark Souls, I'm sorry. Vincent was able to keep Morathi around and do a lot of damage with her. I see people pick the Black Ark Corsairs against Skaven a lot, and I'm skeptical of that pick, because the Black Ark Corsairs can deal with cheap infantry very well. They cannot deal with the better Skaven infantry with any degree of efficiency. Like I said, if you toss a unit of Plague Monks face first against a unit of Black Ark Corsairs, generally the Black Ark Corsairs will lose, and that is especially true when the Plague Monks have the backup of Lore of Plague, or even Lore of Ruin, really, of any magic whatsoever. The Plague Monks will win. So, the Harpies did a lot of work, partially because I didn't notice them. They're a weak unit, but they're not too expensive, and they're fast. So, these are the epitome of flying light cavalry. The Dark Riders did okay. They did their job, but they got bogged down in spears, which is why I have all these spears. Still a solid pick, especially against Skaven. Like I said, the part of this army that I'm skeptical about is actually the Black Ark Corsairs, which sounds like a weird thing to say, but I think Dark Elf players are putting too much emphasis on this particular unit against Skaven. On the Skaven side, Lord Skrulk, I'm not convinced about Lord Skrulk. Like I said at the beginning, he comes across to me as a suicide bomber, and I'm not sure I want to be doing that with my Lord. Like, I'm not certain that I couldn't have done even better if I had had a Greyseer of Ruin on the Bell and 2 Assassins, is basically where I am with Lord Skrulk. Now, he did some cool stuff. He got into the middle of the fight, he did piled up a bunch of damage on a bunch of different units, and he put a bunch of damage on Morathi and on one of the War Hydras. So that was all very useful, but if I'd had a Grey Seer of Ruin with, you know, Crack's Call and that free Scorch ability that the Screaming Bell gives and all of that, I think I probably could have won the infantry fight much more decisively. And then, you know, I could have won both the center and one flank, perhaps, and then kind of enveloped the Hydras a little more. So I don't know. Lord Skrolk, I think he's definitely a choosable pick. He's not too weak to take. He's not too weak to be competitive. He's interesting. He's a very different strategy. Warlock Engineer, I like Warlock Engineers. I just love their whiskery little faces. And I think having some Lord of Ruin is just really important to Skaven. Howling Warp Gale is such a valuable spell. And Warp Lightning is such a valuable spell. It's great to have something of the Lore of Ruin in your build. So if you're not going to take a Grey Seer, I think a Warlock Engineer is a good pick. Assassins, I've already talked about Assassins enough. They're fantastic. Skaven Slaves, Clan Rats, nothing special there. Plague Monks did a reasonably good job as always. Plague Monk Censer Bearers, holy crap. These guys, I wasn't microing these guys hardly at all. They just flung themselves headfirst into the infantry fight and racked up 151 kills in no time. They're very, very strong. Their only real weakness is leadership and armor. If you get archers on these Plague Monk Censer Bearers, they will die. They will die like flies. But they racked up 2 chevrons in the course of the battle. That's definitely a solid endorsement. Skaven Slave Slingers, almost no kills. They did their job. They sucked up a whole bunch of magic. They drew units away from the fight. They put some damage on some Hydras. They're solid. When you have 400 gold left at the end of building your army and you're wondering what to do with it, take these rather than chevrons. They'll pay off. Poison Wind Globadiers, excellent, A+, put a whole bunch of damage on Hydras and then died, but they're only cost 650, so who cares. Deathglow Bombardiers, I didn't use them well. That's really what happened there. I didn't protect them, I didn't micro them well, and as a consequence, they didn't accomplish much. That's not really a failure of the unit, it's a failure of me as a player. Doomwheel, as always, Doomwheel was very, very valuable, did a whole bunch of damage, killed a whole bunch of infantry, and chased a Hydra off and murdered it at the end of the battle. So, good job, Doomwheel. I'll be seeing you around. So that's kind of the, like I said, that'll be the end of the Skaven exploration. I'll talk about the army as a whole in a brief kind of concluding video, and then I'll move on to the Lizardmen. So thank you all so much for watching. If you liked this video, consider subscribing to the channel, and a whole lot more like this will be coming. I'll be starting to intersperse this with some other kinds of videos. I think I'm going to pick up Battle Brothers again. But I will definitely be playing more Total War Warhammer 2 because I love this game 2 bits. So thank you, Vincent Van Smuff, for the something. Thank you, Vincent, for the game. I really liked it. You came very, very close. I was scared there when my infantry line shattered like that, and you still had Black Ark Corsairs running everywhere. So, love to see you again on the ladder, and thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.